Hello everyone and welcome back to more Fruit of Grisaia or Grisaia no Kaijitsu. Let's continue on from where we last left off, shall we? A hobby is a window that gives you a fresh perspective on the world, or so my sister said. But when I was a kid, struggling through my daily life was about all I could handle. I disliked and avoided change, even when it might have brought me something new. So my sister's recommendation was to at least try reading books. That sister of mine was an unbelievably voracious bookworm herself, and she began to push the one she finished on me. I soon picked up a reading habit, although I didn't find any particular meaning in it at the time. My sister's dead now, as are my parents and my master, yet I'm still reading. The sister who taught me to read books, the parents who weren't angry at me when I was reading books, and the master who praised me for reading books, buying me as many as I wanted. I'm grateful to them now, since I found some meaning in the act of reading.
Kazami-kun,
Yes?
今少し時間大丈夫かしら?
Indeed I do. What do you need? I turn around in response to Yumiko's greeting and find her carrying a sizable load of paperback and hardcover books.
読み終わった本を持ってきたのだけれど、読む?
Funny you should ask. I appreciate it as always.
いいのよ。私も読み終わった本の始末ができて楽だから。
As anyone with a long-term reading habit is well aware, books pile up before you know it. That said, it's hard to just throw them away, and selling them as to a used bookstore feels disrespectful to the author. The ideal is to find another avid reader to dump them on. Incidentally, before I came to Sakaki and had apparently been pushing the books she'd finished onto the library, by now she's established her own private shelf in there, full of pleasure reads. Most likely she spotted me by coincidence as she was carrying her books there and figured she could save herself the walk. Heavy, right? Here. I slide my hands under the books Sakaki is carrying.
ちょっと、
Watch it. Don't take your hands off yet. The books are gonna fall.
あなたの手が私の手に触れているのだけれど。
This hardly seems the time nor the place. Of course it is. Don't worry. My hygienic standards are higher than you might expect.
そういうことじゃなくて、もう。
You complain too much. Alright. I've got a hold on them. You can let go.
少し無神経よ、あなた。
That's so? Anyway, I'll gratefully read the books. When I finish one, I'll return to the Sakaki collection, so if you want to reread any of them, they'll be in the library.
わかったわ。それじゃあ、私は失礼するわね。
I love reading books personally. It's a wonderful way to escape the world. I read both fiction and nonfiction. Yeah. I'm currently reading the personal memoirs of Ulysses S. Grant, and I recommend anyone who has a knack for history read them as well. They're actually very well written and very insightful. I take a quick look at the titles of the books I'm holding. Sayua Yakai, The Decisive Pudding Battle. Kumabata Takaru, Yesterday's Black Cat. Hiroi Atsuko, The Exit of the Desert. Senoi Takumi, Professor Takada's Dinner. Ethan Crow, An Insolent Woman. Shinome Kazuma. You blew it, Omori. Omori always blowing things. Although she reads quite a variety of genres and authors, it seems that Sakaki fundamentally likes whodunits. Of the 6 books she's passed to me, 4 are mysteries. Come to think of it, I could easily Sakaki sitting at a detective's desk, using her brains for a living. Flipping open one of the books, I speak towards the shadow of a nearby pillar. Makina, how long do you plan on hiding there? I'm not mad or anything. How about you come out?
なんで私だってわかったのよさ。
Your aura is too crude. I can sense you even when you're hidden.
そんなこと言われたの初めてなのよさ。
I just said that for the hell of it. You were casting a shadow on the floor. I could tell it was you from the height of the shaggy head.
隠れるにしても雑すぎってこと？
Pretty much. Why were you hiding in the first place?
別に隠れてたわけじゃないのよさ。お兄ちゃんとユミちゃんのお話が終わるまでじっと黙ってただけなのよ。
You don't get along with Sakaki?
そういうわけじゃないのよ。でもユミちゃんはきっと私のことあんま好きじゃないと思うのよさ。
On the other hand, I'm pretty sure Sakaki said something like, I think Irisu avoids me on purpose. We're in a state of mutual wariness. Well, I suppose that does happen sometimes. Sakaki, a guarded person who doesn't reveal her thoughts easily, and Makina, who feels most secure when she's burrowed her way into someone's heart. Their personal comfort zones may be incompatible. Well, it's foolish to expect everyone to get along, I suppose. A long time ago, I knew a guy who hated black people with a passion, and nothing anyone said could get him to change his mind. Sakaki Yumiko and Irisu Makina. There's no need to forcibly push them together, but in their case, maybe a mutual compromise is called for. I don't think Sakaki dislikes you, Makina, so try not to hate her yourself.
だから別に嫌ってないし、ただなんていうか、
I see.
むしろ逆に聞くけど、お兄ちゃんはどうやってあの気難しいユミちゃんと年頃な間柄になったの？
Well, it's not like we're particularly close, but we have a common interest in books, so I guess that helped things to get started. Of course, I get the idea Sakaki mostly views me as a little more than a convenient book disposal. After all, it's hard to say you're friendly with someone who scowls so bluntly just because your hand's touched. Makina, do you have any hobbies?
趣味？そうね。強いて言えば散歩ぐらい？
So?
大抵一人で。
That's not good.
なんでさ、一人遊びってなんかちょっとエッチっぽくてよくない？
Oh, that's not what I meant. No, also, no.
あれ？
At the company I work at, solitary hobbies are fundamentally discouraged. They place a lot of stress on keeping up some form of communication with others. When it comes to the interest of the employees, the basics are alcohol, women, and gambling. But it's also a bit difficult to cone up that in front of the boss. Therefore, when asked, some of them just come up with a safe-sounding, conventional hobby like shogi or go. When the superiors reacted favorably to those answers, the end result was that the hobbies column in the employee survey data recorded an overwhelming number of shogi buffs. Although going with the flow is pretty much the defining Japanese characteristic, it's still something of a pathetic story. Well, having given them a nice safe hobby like reading myself, I guess I can't really say too much. Nothing, just talking to myself. Incidentally, once you're the one giving the surveys out, in other words, an executive type, the hobby of choice would be gardening, not something you can do when you're living out of a barracks.
趣味ってそんなに大事？
Yeah, it's better to have some interest than not, even if you are really worthless. For example, the aforementioned employees and their wine, women, and song. Even then, if they can help you find a single common interest with someone, your hobbies are worthwhile as social lubricant, even if they're worthless in every other respect. This is something I heard secondhand from a senior employee at my job, but sometimes you get cases like this. This is a story about a man who took a business trip to Gifu Prefecture. It was a group expedition with the purpose of field testing new equipment that had just been deployed throughout his company. At the time, the man in question was a new employee, not even out of his training period. Nonetheless, he found himself taking a long, bumpy ride into the mountains on a company bus, accompanied by the chief of his special department. The man didn't have the first clue why he had been selected for the trip, let alone what he had expected to do on it. To make matters worse, he was sitting next to a powerful superior he barely knew. In short, the man was about ready to vomit from sheer terror and anxiety. He fought desperately to keep calm, but his face was pale as a sheet. The bus finally reached its destination at the foot of Mount Kinka in Gifu after many unpleasant hours. But the man's relief was temporary, as his boss informed him they would be attending a large banquet in a high-class inn that night. Corporate banquets are basically a cruel kind of talent show. New employees were expected to perform some skill for the amusement of the gathered VIPs. The newbies from each department mounted the stage one after the other. Quite a few croaked out popular karaoke ballads with stiff faces. But there were also some pretty competent juggling acts. Even one stand-up comedy duo, which got some laughs doing imitations of superiors. The man watched the other acts with a fluttering heart. His turn was approaching fast, but it was basically a walking, breathing lump of artistic incompetence, and a social type without a single talent worth performing in front of others. Just as he was wondering whether he could escape by pretending a sudden illness, the man was practically kicked out onto the stage by the senior employees. For lack of a better thought, he started to sing. But the man didn't know any popular songs. Worse, he couldn't remember any of the standard folk songs or children's music that might have worked in a pinch. The man went and said with the theme song from a superhero show, Lightspeed General Daikomorov, which he had loved as a kid. By this point, he couldn't help but feeling a growing sense of despair. And this was, of course, the man's first time singing in public, and he didn't have much of a voice. Within moments, he was showered in jeers from the audience. "The hell are you singing? What's with you? Hey, asshole, are you just making that up on the spot? That's enough. Get off the stage. You suck." Although he wasn't the type to break down in tears, the man felt a deep urge to dig himself a hole and crawl into it. Only sheer stubbornness carried him through the last humiliating note. When it was over, the man quickly bowed from the stage and raced back to his seat. On that walk back from the stage, the man had a thought. I wish I learned a popular song or two.
つまりカラオケが趣味だったらいらん恥をかかずに済んだってお話?
Well, if you look at it that way, you're right. But the story isn't over yet. It's just beginning. With the equipment test wrapped up, the man had returned to his new assignment at a branch office in Shizuoka. Someone called out to him as he was dealing with the transfer paperwork. "So, you were the newbie who sang Daikomorov at the banquet in Gifu?" The man's breath caught in his throat. He'd figured out by now that the main job of his superiors was to flaunt their authority by picking at the smallest mistakes and then rubbing his nose in them. And another manager speaking to him was infamous for his zealous leadership of his underlings. Frankly, the man was about ready to piss his pants. He swallowed and chewed his lip, bitter thoughts running through his head. What's he gonna blame on me? How long will I have to grovel? But the manager's words took him by surprise. "I loved that show when I was a kid." The man blinked, dumbfounded by this unexpected development. "You from Hiroshima, kid?" According to the manager, Dai Makarov, reruns were played relentlessly every weekday afternoon on the local station. Practically every child in Hiroshima grew up watching the show. But the man wasn't a Hiroshima native. In the area he lived in as a child, the Children's Encore Theater program would broadcast old episodes of the show every summer. He just happened to see a few. Even so, the manager must have been really pleased to find a fellow Dai Makarov fan, as he began to pull a few strings to the man's benefit. One night after work, the man returned to his bed in the company dorm to find that a white plastic bag had been tucked underneath the sheets on his neatly made bed. He didn't remember putting it there himself, and when he asked around, nobody else had any idea where it came from. The bag contained a huge jelly roll and a cup of instant ramen. As a new employee, the man had to eat dinner at a set time of 5 p.m. By 10 p.m., lights out time at the dorm. All of the trainees would be starving. This supplemental meal was therefore a very considerate present. The man had an idea of who was responsible. Most likely his Dai Makarov buddy at the top was the only one who could have pulled it off. On top of the early dinner time, learning the ropes as a trainee is particularly tiring. His Dai Makarov buddy had probably figured he'd have a hard time getting his young body to fall asleep on an empty stomach. The man actually didn't have a particularly big appetite, and wasn't the type to be troubled by irregular meals. But then again, as a new employee, he didn't have much money he could spend freely on snacks and such. A little sugar was extremely welcome. If I get caught, they'll get punished too. So the man split the smuggled food with the other trainees in his room, and they all devoured their shares greedily. As the presents from his Dai Makarov buddy, at the time they were known as Dai Makarov Supply Drop, continued, that talentless, quiet, and hobbyless triple threat contender for the asocial crown suddenly found himself getting along with the group in the dorm, all thanks to the Dai Makarov connection. And 3 months later, when the man's training period had come to an end, it was once again his Dimecroft buddy who, with recommendation, got him assigned to the Chiba branch office he'd hoped for. In other words, when it comes to hobbies and interests, anything is fine. Finding friends you can talk to about some common interests with it is really a valuable thing. Sometimes something that small can be the trigger for gaining a huge leg up in life. That's the moral of the story, really.
なんかよくわかんないけど、大マカロフって大きなマカロンみたいで美味しそうなのよ。
I thought this was quite a pretty meaningful story. I guess it didn't quite get across.
要は一人で散歩したりお人形さんごっこしてばっかいないでいろんなこと経験しとけってことなのね。
Well, more or less. When you're young, you should mess around with all sorts of things. Just try to find something that grabs you. Even if it's stupid crap.
お兄ちゃんは今なんか夢中になってることあるの？
After all that spacing out, that's a pretty sharp question. I glanced down toward the pile of borrowed books I'm holding in my hands. I suppose right now I don't have anything other than reading that qualifies.
ロールケーキ食べたいね。
You won't really listen to a word I'm saying, are you? Well, not to say that you need to.
だってさっきのお話で出てきたロールケーキって単語が気になっちゃったのよさ。あとマカロン。
Go get Amane to make something.
ぜひそうしよう。お兄ちゃんも後でアマネーのお部屋においで。一緒におやつ食べようよ。
Yeah, if I'm in the mood.
じゃあまた後でね。
Take care. I see. I learned my own lesson from this conversation. If there's a mention of food in the middle of a story marking, I won't remember another word. I'll have to be more careful next time. Next time. During my middle school days in America, I got a number of strange nicknames from my classmates, mainly because none of them could be bothered to remember a Japanese name. On the predictable side, there was Jap and Shorty. My family name Kazumi got abbreviated to KZ as well. However, among my numerous nicknames, the only one that stuck through basic training was Gar, short for garbage eater. It's not that I had a reputation for dumpster diving, it was a reference to my tolerance for shitty food. As to how I earned it, the story is very simple. The KP made a slop unfit for pigs, and I ate it without grimacing. Freeze-dried scrambled eggs, pork and beans made from scraps of ham, bread with peanut butter, and ridiculously stringy mystery meat were the staples. Every one of them had a weird chemical aftertaste, and they were all disgusting. Rumor had it the secret sauce was gasoline. As for the chocolate cake we got for dessert, it was more commonly and accurately described as a dessert. The cake was legendary for being inedible. No matter how starved you were, it would end up stuck in your throat as a dry lump. But I ate it, and all the rest, without complaining. Probably because I was living rough from a young age. I've never been what you called a picky eater. To put it simply, as long as my belly was full and my body was getting what it needed, the taste wasn't a concern. So even those 3 torturous meals a day didn't inspire any serious complaints from me. But the people around me must have thought I was some sort of freak. And after a while, my nickname became Garbage Eater, then eventually just Gar. Hey Gar, just how shitty cook was your mom? I had a set response to this one. My mom didn't cook too much. She was busy screwing your dad's brains out. As far as my jokes go, I thought it was kind of witty. But that line didn't get that many laughs. I guess my delivery was a bit too stony. Well then, what should I do for dinner? I don't particularly feel a desire to eat. But if you don't take meals at 3 regular times a day, it throws off your body's clock and leaves you more susceptible to fatigue. To tell the truth, I view meals as nothing more than an element to maintaining my physical condition. As long as I'm getting sufficient nourishment, I'm not that caught up on when or what I eat. When I spend any effort considering things like that, all I end up thinking about is how much of a pain in the ass it is to be going to make something. And eventually, the act of eating itself starts to feel like a nuisance. My normal pattern is to just throw something together from my supply of canned and dried food.
いる？
That's a voice I didn't want to hear.
なんだ、いるんじゃない。
Where else would I be? This is my room. Amane barges in like she owns the place. No longer even bothering to knock, but I'm already getting used to it, I guess. Probably because I've experienced a lot of emergency summons. It didn't get to me that much in the first place.
7時になったら私の部屋にご飯食べにおいでって言ったでしょ。夕食の用意してマキナと待ってたのになんで来ないかな。
As she speaks, I notice that Amane is holding a plate piled with crab leg in her hands.
実家からカニが届いたから食べにおいでって言ったじゃんさ。
I do recall such an event. I also recall responding if I'm in the mood. That I'd definitely be there. Yes, but I said that you and Makina should go ahead and eat if I didn't show up on time.
何？あんたもカニ嫌いなの？
Not really.
殻を剥いて食べるのがめんどくさいでしょ。マキナも同じこと言うのよね。剥いてあげれば食べるくせにさ。
I do enjoy crab meat, but it is kind of a pain to cracking open the shell. It's too much work for so little food.
剥いてあげれば剥いてあげたであの子。これぞザッツカニパンでしょとか言いながらパンに挟んで食べるのよ。
That sounds like her.
基本的に物の価値が分かっていないっていうか、挙句には言うにこと書いてかまぼこの方がうめえなって失礼しちゃうわよ。
Probably just means that Makina places more importance on how easy it is to eat. Honestly, I think I'd go for crab paste over crab myself.
何よ、張り合いのない子たちね。世の中には食べたくても食べられない子がたくさんいるのよ。
That's certainly true.
分かったのなら文句を言わず食べなさい。殻剥いてあげるから。
Look, I wasn't really complaining, and I could take care of the shell on my own, alright?
っていうか、私が来なかったら何を食べるつもりだったの？
It's none of your business.
ご飯は炊いてあるんだ。でもこれいつ炊いたの？なんかカチカチ。
Hey, hands off! Amane has wandered off into my kitchen and is examining things as she pleases. After confirming the contents of my mess kit cooker, she opens the door to my refrigerator and starts taking stock of my supplies.
食べかけの缶詰の残りと魚肉ソーセージとマヨネーズにレタスとチンゲン菜。こんなのどこで売ってるのよ。っていうか、いつ開けたの？
I opened it at lunch. Get off my back, please. Why is it that this is feeling strangely embarrassing? It's not like I have anything troublesome in the fridge. In the first place, why does she get off calling canned radish this thing? It's well known among canned food connoisseurs as almost decent and pretty much edible. Is this one looking down on the brave men and women who have gained courage from canned food throughout the years? It's a Popeye reference, probably. As I silently burn with a righteous indignation, Amane brazenly starts running tap water into my rice cooker. Hey, what do you think you're doing?
だってこのままじゃご飯がカチカチだし。
I don't care if it's hard. Probably because I'm used to eating canned stuff that comes out of arid and stiff as wax candle. I'm pretty tolerant of tough food.
卵はと、2つしかないけど使っちゃっていい？
I don't care, but what are you planning?
カニチャーハン作ってあげる。あんたはおとなしく座って待ってなさいな。
Well, I suppose pretty much anyone can handle fried rice, especially for a woman. Somewhat prejudiced assumption is that you'll have a basic skill like that. Fact is that of all the women I've met so far, the only one who couldn't make edible fried rice was my master. Still, I can't quite hide a certain anxiety. Not that Amane is paying any attention. Humming to herself, she cracks open the eggs. After shaking salt and pepper onto the eggs, she mixes in the lightly rinsed rice, then adds a bit of crab meat, only about half of what she bought, and finally chopped radish. She heats a frying pan coated with mayonnaise rather than oil, adds the lettuce and spinach she plundered from my fridge, and throws in the rice mixture according to her own timing. Sticking the back of her ladle into the mix, she vigorously clatters it around the frying pan, messily stir-frying the food. When Amane decides it's done, she uses the bowl as a mold to form the fried rice into a perfect hemisphere, then tosses it onto the plate. This wouldn't look out of place in a Chinese restaurant.
そして最後に
Dressing the leftover crab meat with mustard and mayo, she drops it with a thud on top of a heap of fried rice on the plate.
お待たせ
So she says, but it hasn't even been 10 minutes since Amane started to cook. The imposing pile of steaming fried rice on my plate looks pretty damn impressive for something cobbled together out of leftovers, and in such a short time.
っていうかこの部屋もっと大きいテーブルないのなんかお皿とかも少ないし今度来るとき持ってこようか
I only have to eat for one here. Got what I need. The table is a small coffee table for one that Sashi dragged out of some storeroom as a stopgap measure. And the frying pan and what tableware I have are things I picked out of carelessly at a local 100 yen and hardware stores. But since I'm living alone, it's all perfectly adequate. No point getting more dishes when I'm the one eating off of it. Just means more things to wash.
確かに洗い物は溜め込んでないみたいだけど
Noticing something as she speaks, Amane returns to the kitchen and starts to rustle through a plastic bag in the corner.
これはゴミ捨てていいの
Yeah. I've been throwing my empty oolong tea bottles in that bag, and before I knew it, I had something of a pile. But I was uncertain about the timing to throw them out.
明日資源ゴミの日だから一緒に出しておいてあげる
With well-practiced movements, she peels off the labels, removes the caps, and skillfully cuts off their plastic rings with the tip of a kitchen knife. Finally, she lightly rinses the bottles themselves with tap water. Judging from the smooth motion of her hands, she's repeated this often enough to gain the mastery of an assembly line worker. Clearly, she's something of an eco-friendly woman.
じゃあ私部屋に戻るけど食べ終わったらちゃんとお皿は洗い桶につけておいてね後で洗いに来るから
I'm not completely hopeless, you know. I can wash a dish. Take care of that myself. Sorry for the hassle.
いいのよちゃんとこういうこともできるって見せておかないとただのエッチなお姉さんだと思われちゃうしね
With a quick goodbye, Amane heads out of the room, not waiting for my impressions of the crab fried rice. I had the idea that a busybody woman like her would be more likely to hang over my shoulder pestering me for compliments, but she just popped in all of a sudden, cooked for me in a flash, and then left just as quickly. Might be the influence of dealing with that whimsical mocking all the time. Let's eat. Unfortunately, I don't have a Chinese spoon in this room, so I'll have to make do with the standard Western variety. I jab my spoon into the mountain of steaming fried rice and quickly throw some into my mouth. Not bad at all. Even someone as disinterested in food as me can tell when something tastes good. The salt seasoning feels a bit thin, but this is probably how it should be if you're thinking about healthy sodium intake. Although it would be insulting to compare this to any crap my master made, it's also different from the stuff you'd get at a high-priced Chinese restaurant. It tastes like your standard fried rice. What's with this flavor? When I was living alone with my mother as a child, I remember eating fried rice that tasted like this. After finishing her day job, my mother would make me dinner before her night shift started. In the last week of the month before our paychecks came in, it would often be a pretty plain meal of fried rice. When all she could put on the table was fried rice with a bit of pink fish paste added, she would apologize as I ate. I'm sorry, this is all we've got. Unlike the fried rice Amane just made, there was never anything extravagant like crab thrown in, and Amane's cooking skills seemed to be better as well. So why is it that they tasted similar? Where's this slight melancholy coming from? Well, it doesn't matter as long as it's good. When I was a kid, anything tasted good. That part of me hasn't changed too much. Hasn't changed at all. And with that, I think I'm gonna end the video off here, and I will see you all in the next part, so take it easy, everybody.